Good morning, punk rock traders. Well, we had quite a trade yesterday, as you guys hopefully were exposed to when TSM really smashed their earnings expectations. They not only beat numbers, which was very important for the report. I think the most important part of the report was they raised guidance, and they used some really confident terminology. They said that they expect AI demand to endure for many years, for instance. So that was a big deal. We didn't pick this trade because the options were undervalued. We didn't pick this trade because we saw someone else making it. We picked this trade because we have confidence in the company, right? And this is a perfect example of what we hope a punk rock trade will become. And that is, mixing fundamental research with leverage to get returns that are normally not available over shorter time periods than they're normally available, right? So we recommended this trade on 9/19. That is less than a month ago. And as you can see, it went up 210% yesterday at the peak, and then it settled at about 153% up. Now, we gave you a lot of time value on this trade because of our confidence in the company and because of seasonal tailwinds that are coming. So we don't think the gains on this position are over, but we do think a good percentage of them obviously occurred after that spectacular earnings beat. We would hold the position if it were up to us. We don't tell people how to sell here at Punk Rock Traders. We sort of get you up into the plane and you pack your own parachute. So hopefully, if it was within your financial goals, you probably sold yesterday at quite a gain. And if you did, congratulations. I want to start our discussion today with these two quotes. They're very dear to me in investing. And I want to kind of walk you through why we were so confident in TSM and why we're also confident in Nvidia's earnings this quarter. As you can see, TSM is just distinguishing itself against the other major semiconductor fab companies, which is Intel and Samsung. There's something called Mos Second Law. All of you are probably familiar with what Moore's Law is, but Mos Second Law is that with each iteration of shrinking and diminishing in cost chips, you get a rise in cost of the semiconductor fabs that are used to make the chips, right? So fabs for leading edge chips have become so cost prohibitive that they're basically out of reach for pretty much every single commercial entity on earth, right? TSM is really the only company who is doing it very profitably. You can see what's happening to Samsung and Intel. So TSM does have the sort of technological monopoly, and then it has its customer base. It consists of the wealthiest and most successful companies in the world. So when you understand these things, when you understand that there will always be a wait for these leading edge chips and that they can basically name their price to the richest clients on earth, it's not really a big surprise that they were able to make mincemeat of Wall Street analysts' estimates, right? Another thing that I would also point out is that technology companies are creating a lot more value using intangible value instead of tangible assets, right? TSM's know-how on how to produce semiconductors more efficiently and effectively than the competition, that would be an example of intangible value, that intellectual property, right? You can see that they did very good on the numbers, but really the big showstopper was the guidance. That was significantly higher. And like I said, the language was very, very bullish. I want to explain to you the semiconductor ecosystem more. One of the reasons why TSM is such an important bellwether for the market, and one of the reasons ASML wasn't, is because TSM is doing the actual building of the fabs, right? There is a whole support industry of companies doing packaging, scaling and integration, materials innovation, all of that helps us continue to meet the demands of Moore's Law, right? It's a giant, complicated technological ecosystem. But TSM is the 800-pound gorilla of that ecosystem. And them showing the level of strength they did suggests that the rest of the semi-industry can show similar strength, right? And it also suggests, in my opinion, that Nvidia can show a lot of strength as well. So people say Nvidia is overvalued, right? And if you look at this valuation scorecard, that would confirm that belief, right? But let's think about Keynes's quote. Let's not think about valuation in terms of a number relative to other people. Let's talk about valuation in terms of popularity, right? So Nvidia's valuation is elevated, but Polaroid once had a valuation 3 times out of Nvidia with a much less essential technological monopoly, right? Nvidia is a computing company that basically puts off our reckoning with Moore's law and enables all sorts of computing, not just in artificial intelligence. You can see that they look very overvalued here until I go back to the intrinsic valuation summary from February. Look, much less upside back then. It said negative 93% upside compared to negative 62%. So what that says is that Nvidia is not a bubble. Its valuation is not getting ahead of itself. The opposite is happening. It's growing into its valuation and it's becoming less undervalued as this artificial intelligence market has showed its chops. There's other, I don't think TSM was an anomaly, and you can see this in the sector-wide EPS guidance. You can see that amazingly, right, the technology companies issuing positive EPS guidance is the highest since Q3 2021. This is a big deal, right? And the people who talk about market concentration being a bad thing, it can also be a good thing when these companies are outperforming earnings, right? So let's keep that in mind as we go forward. And let's keep in mind we have seasonals going into a bull market with the Fed cutting. Our note today was about informed optimism, right? We want to make money off of the pessimism of others. We don't want to let it drive our investment decision-making. I want to point out this, right? A year ago, there was a 100% chance forecast of a recession. We have not had a recession. We've had an incredibly strong economy since. And, it's just an example of that informed optimism. If you were looking at the economic numbers, if you were looking at how COVID affected the economy and how it affected those numbers, you could see that there was a lot of economic strength. And we wrote about today in the note that the commercial entities that emerged after COVID are leaner and meaner than the ones that came before. And, that's why we have informed optimism about them. These companies keep proving us right, and that is very positive. The earnings are ultimately what drives the price, and the earnings are very positive in tech. TSM's earnings, I don't think were an anomaly. And I also think that Nvidia is going to beat earnings pretty handily this quarter. I think last quarter's lackluster response was probably due to a Blackwell manufacturing error. And a couple months ago, everyone was saying Nvidia was a bubble and comparing it to this Cisco chart. You can see how that worked out. We hope you had the opportunity to capitalize on some of our great trades this week. We had some really good ones, and we got you in on Walgreens. We got you in on HIMS. We got you to short oil. We got you a good VIX call that expired at 99% in the money. And of course, we got you TSM. We also have Home Depot, which is doing pretty well. So hopefully you've taken the opportunity to get in on some of these trades. We'll have a lot more for you. Our trade of the week yesterday was shorting gold. It's really had a period of extensive outperformance. And we think as the bull market goes on, people are going to start shunning gold for more risk on assets, particularly with inflation in the rearview mirror. So that's the basics of that trade of the week. Anyways, we can't thank you enough for being part of the Punk Rock Traders community. We hope that this was an informative post-op of our trade on TSM. Again, we didn't pick this trade because the options were undervalued. We picked it because we thought the company was undervalued. I always want you to remember, when you feel pessimistic in markets, question it. Just take the other side of the argument. It's one of the most valuable tools you have in investing, and we'll always help you do it here at Punk Rock Traders. Thanks as always, and have a great day, everybody.